Elijah Friedeman is a native Mississippian who recently returned to the state after graduating from Asbury University with degrees in communication and ancient languages. He is pursuing his Master's of Divinity degree at Wesleyan Biblical Seminary and served as Associate Pastor of Day Spring Community Church. Elijah has been involved in the pro-life movement for 14 years, young as he is, 14 years. He continues to regularly join his church in front of the Jackson Abortion Clinic to offer women and their children hope and care. And that's as much bio as he would give me. But I think you're going to be impressed with what he has to say. Elijah Friedeman.
Thanks for that introduction, and thanks to all of you for being here. I want to echo what was said earlier, that the people here are the people who are really involved, really making a difference in the state politically on a variety of issues. And that's really invaluable because so many people in this state are benefiting from the work that you put in. So thank you very much. You know, we hear a lot about a lot of different issues these days, and even today you'll hear about a lot of issues. You've heard about a lot of issues. And everyone has their pet issue. Well, I have my pet issue. And I believe my pet issue, like most people do, is the most important issue, and that pet issue is abortion. And I believe this because for the last 42 years, more than 50 million children have been legally killed in this nation. More than 50 million. And we can look at all the other issues there are, and they do matter. They matter substantially. But no other issue matters with 52 million lives, or 50 plus million lives. But this isn't just a political issue, it's also a personal issue. Jessica was a frightened Christian girl. She was pregnant. She only had one option: get an abortion. So she went to the abortion clinic here in Mississippi, the last one left, over on State Street. And she went in there. And she scheduled an appointment for a week later. She was going to come back a week later and have her abortion. She got up, left the waiting room, walked outside, the bright sunlight hit her eyes. She began to walk along the wrought iron fence, and there's a middle-aged pro-lifer on the other side who began to talk to her. And Jessica walked away. I'm here today to talk about young people and abortion. Now abortion is very important, but young people and abortion is very, very important. Millennials, or those aged 21 to 34 years old, are the most coveted demographic for marketers, people trying to sell you their products. And the reason why is because people this age, they can already purchase, and for the next 60 years they'll be able to purchase. Well, the same is true for politics. The people who vote the most are older people, but the people who are going to vote the most for the next 60 years are the young people. They're the people who are voting now, who are just starting to vote. So it matters what young people are thinking and what young people are doing. It's a barometer for the politics in the future. So millennials matter. Well, if millennials matter, millennials are those 18 to 30 roughly. If millennials matter, then what do they think about pro-life issues? Well, this is kind of a tough question to answer because most Americans don't fall neatly into one of two camps. They're not pro-life or pro-choice. We sometimes separate people out like that. But we usually don't have people who are always in favor of abortion or always against abortion no matter what. For instance, the recent Marist poll that just came out this month says that 29% of people are pro-life, 27% of people are pro-choice, and the remaining 44% drift in between. They may be slightly pro-life, slightly pro-choice. They might just be in the middle, a mix of different views. So when it comes to millennials, that is young people, it's really hard to get a gauge on exactly what young people believe. A recent Gallup poll, somewhat recent, this was 2010, of 18 to 29-year-olds, found that 24% of 18 to 29-year-olds are always in favor of abortion. 23% are never in favor of abortion. And 51% are okay with abortion with certain restrictions. Now this 51% in the middle, there can be so many different restrictions. It could be they're only in favor of abortion in the first 3 months, only in favor of abortion in case of rape or incest, or they're only in favor of abortion in case of the life of the mother. So it's really hard to nail people down. But that number, the 23% who are never in favor of abortion, that's a higher percentage than any other age demographic. So if you go 65 plus, you don't have that many people who are always against abortion. So while you're always going to have this wishy-washy middle ground, they're not even wishy-washy, that's unfair to them, but they don't fall neatly into one camp. They're in the middle. you still have the people who are strongly pro-life. There are more strongly pro-life people who are young than any other age group. 65 plus, 25 to 59. It doesn't matter what. The young people are the ones who are most pro-life. But here's the interesting thing. Out of those young people, only 32% think that the pro-life view is the majority. And we know from many polls that have been done that America is split roughly down the middle. And it fluctuates a little bit year to year, but pretty much half people consider themselves pro-life, half people consider themselves pro-choice. But millennials think that most people are pro-choice or pro-abortion. Only 32% of millennials think that the pro-life view is majority. Now this is really interesting because we have to stop and think, if a lot of millennials are pro-life, and really a lot when you take into account the exceptions for rape and incest and the life of the mother, the vast majority of millennials are pro-life. It's interesting to think that they voted, in fact they led the charge in voting for the most pro-abortion president we've ever had, Barack Obama, twice. And so in practice, this isn't an issue that's really sinking down into the consciousness of young people. We might believe it, but it's not sinking down into how we act. It's not one of the issues that's primarily in our focus. But this is the most fascinating poll I'm going to talk about today. Then I'll be done with polls, and you can kind of forget about numbers for a little bit. 51% of young pro-life people see abortion as an important electoral issue. And only 20% of pro-choice or pro-abortion people feel the same way. So what that means is if you're pro-life, you feel strongly about it. If you're pro-abortion, you don't feel as strongly about it. What does this mean for the future? It means that we have young people growing up who care about the issue. They want to do something about the issue. Now, it may take time for them to get to where they start voting more. This is a long process, but it looks good for the future. It bodes well for the future. And by the way, that last poll that I quoted was from NAVAL, which is a pro-abortion group, and they even admitted that. So if young people do seem to care, even if they're not all pro-life, but if there's a substantial number of pro-lifers, how are they getting involved? I was up in Washington, D.C. in January. I was up there for a conference, and I happened to be there at the same time as the March for Life. Has anyone here been to the March for Life before? It's a pretty neat experience. This year, I didn't know the exact number, but you have hundreds of thousands of people, predominantly young people, who are out there marching against abortion. We all got together in the National Mall, and then we marched down, we marched up to the Capitol building. It was a pretty cool event. Now, so many of those people are young. There's so much promise there because people are holding up signs and they're chanting. They're holding up signs that say, "I am the pro-life generation." Now, this is good, but it's only good if that translates into action, that translates into how we vote. Because really, my generation is bad about this. We get behind causes. We'll like them on Facebook. We'll follow them on Twitter. We'll give people high fives if they're wearing the shirt, but we don't do anything too much. And that's where it really comes in, and that's where you come in. You have young people around you, you can talk to them about this. If they do say they're pro-life, encourage them to get involved. Furthermore, if you say you're pro-life, get involved. It's not enough to just say it. You can say it, it doesn't mean anything until you get involved and do something. So young people at the March for Life, hundreds of thousands of young people. There are lots of groups that are popping up with young people who are against abortion. Students for Life has been around for a while. They've trained 20,000 young pro-life leaders. Live Action, which is Lila Rose, they're really putting some light on the dark places of the abortion industry. There are lots of other small and large organizations like this that are coming up because young people care. Young people aren't just saying it, they're getting involved. Now this might be the minority, but it's starting to happen. I think one reason for this is because people recognize that abortion is a young issue. Most of the people who get abortions are under 30. They're young people. Furthermore, the children who are being killed are young people. This is a young issue. Now praise God for the people of all ages who are getting involved. But young people, I believe, are starting to wake up and realize this is a young issue. Furthermore, medical advances are saving babies earlier and earlier who are born premature. Also, ultrasounds, 4D ultrasounds, allow us to see the humanity that is there at such an early age. And that's another important factor. And the final thing I'm going to touch on briefly, then I'll open it up for some questions, is how do we persuade young people? How do we persuade young people? Maybe they're on the fence. Maybe they're part of that middle ground, the 51% that feels that there should be certain restrictions, but maybe they're further on one end than you are. We have to recognize that there's been a shift in thinking from modern to postmodern. Now what this means is that we move from facts and propositions to people and stories. So the pro-life group is really good about this. We have our facts down. We've got the arguments. They're great arguments. We have the biological arguments. We have moral arguments. We can bring up where the child is, at which week of pregnancy, how far along they're developed, when the heartbeat starts. We're great at this. In fact, we can argue people into the ground. But young people don't need arguments. Don't need arguing. We care about people. Not everyone cares about people. But really what connects with us is not the logical propositions. It's the life stories that matter. And this is where the pro-life movement has trouble, because the people we're standing up to protect primarily are the babies in the womb. People who will never breathe the same air we breathe or have the same life experience as we have, and yet somehow we have to find a way to humanize these children, to share their stories. Secondly, we need to temper our rhetoric. We need to be winsome and compelling. Now, it sure feels good when you feel like you're on the side of righteousness to just hammer away and use all the rhetoric you want, and call the abortion clinics abortion mills, and call the doctors names that you probably shouldn't, and just rail on abortion. Now that might feel satisfying, but it doesn't change hearts and minds. And finally, this is what I struggle with a little bit, because I'm becoming a pastor. I'm studying to be a senior pastor. We need to make abortion not just a Christian issue, because it's not a Christian issue. It's a human issue. It's an issue that affects every single one of us. Now, should our Christianity influence what we think about it? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's not just a Christian issue. And as long as it remains a Christian issue, it'll be an issue for those people over there and not for all of young people. We've got to change that. Jessica walked out of the abortion clinic. The bright light hit her eyes as she walked along the wrought iron fence. This middle-aged pro-lifer began to talk to her. She thought her only option was abortion. She was wearing a blue bracelet that day around her wrist. On the bracelet were the words Jehovah Jireh. You might recognize those words. They're from the story in the Old Testament of Abraham who's about to sacrifice his only son Isaac. That's his only option. And then God intervenes. And God is called Jehovah Jireh, the Lord who provides. Well, the middle-aged pro-lifer looked at Jessica and said, if you leave this place today, the Lord will provide. He'll provide for you and the child within you. Jessica went home. She waited a week. When the time came for her to come back to the abortion clinic, she didn't. She didn't. Well, the only reason I found out about this story is because the middle-aged pro-life man was my dad. And years later, Jessica contacted him. She managed to find out who he was, contacted him. She sent him this message, told him the story. She said, I had my child. I named him Isaac. Isaac is 6 years old. He loves everything superhero. He hates vegetables. And he loves chocolate chip cookies. Isaac is not an issue. He's a 6-year-old who loves superheroes and chocolate chip cookies. And he only loves these things because he was not aborted. Isaac is a human being. And when we begin to tell stories like that show the humanity of the unborn child, when we begin to communicate this, and as young people begin to realize this, we are going to see a sea change in our culture. We're already beginning to see it. And the thing is, that sea change can stop right where it is right now, or it can continue on. And so much of that depends on us. Are we going to tell the stories of those whose lives were saved from abortion? Who could walk around today loving superheroes and chocolate chip cookies, loving their moms. It matters what we do, what we think. And the young people are the key to ending abortion in this state and in this nation. We have time for questions now. If you have a question about young people and abortion or anything related to that, or just an observation you want to have, I'm open to whatever. Yes?
Do you have anyone picking at this one clinic?
Absolutely. So Judy Batson here, she's president of Pro-Life Mississippi, and she can tell you more, but there's a schedule of people who come out, call themselves sidewalk counselors, and they're out there, I think, as often as the abortion clinic's open. Most recently, it's only been open 2 days a week, sometimes 3 days a week, which is a huge blessing to have it open only that often. And that's because of the efforts of Judy Batson and others like her across the years, across the decades of fighting against abortion. But it's not infrequent now. Yes, and Ashley's here, who does so much as well. But it's not infrequent.
I want to take this time. There's several people in the audience who are sidewalk counselors. Will you please stand up?
It's these people. Yeah, they're out there, and when it's open. So my church, J Spring Community Church, we're out there on Wednesdays. Praise God, it has been open too frequently on those days, which is a great thing. And when you're out there, there's lots of different ways to do it. Our church takes a very gentle approach. We have signs that say, hey, we can help, we're praying for you. My dad will talk to the lady and say, hey, what can we do to help you? Jesus doesn't want you to feel good, that sort of thing. But yeah, there's people out there. Praise God. Anything else? Any other questions? All right. Hey, it's because of people like you that this fight has been going on for 42 years and that we're making progress. So stay in the fight. Keep on fighting. Martin Luther King Jr. had a quote that says, "The arc of history bends towards justice." And on this issue, I firmly believe that in this nation, the arc of history is bending towards justice for the unborn babies of our nation. Stay in the fight. Thank you very much.